Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Welcome to Dad's Eye View, where we hope to address parental issues from a loving dad's point of view. It is my desire that we talk together, learn together, but more importantly, that we parent together. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell, and welcome to the show. Fatherlessness is considered one of the most pervasive social ills impacting families. According to the $100 billion man, a study released by the National Fatherhood Institute, the federal government spends $99.8 billion a year on programs including child support enforcement and anti-poverty efforts to support father-absent homes. The report further concludes that half of all children and 80% of African-American children can expect to spend at least part of their childhood apart from their fathers. The bottom line is the absence of a father in the lives of children and youth creates a devastating toll on children, families, and communities. On Father's Day, this Father's Day, June 19th, we're asking men who are estranged from their children to summon the courage to take steps to reconnect with their children. By using social media and leveraging partnerships with community-based organizations, this groundbreaking initiative seeks to mobilize 100,000 fathers to do the following: to pick up a phone to make contact with their son or daughter, to write a letter to their son or daughter as an icebreaker, to contact the child's mother or guardian to arrange a visit, and sign up for the President's Fatherhood Initiative via fatherhood.gov. Additionally, we're asking mothers and grandmothers to be supportive of dads who are willing to initiate contact with their children. We believe helping mothers and grandmothers understand the power of forgiveness can be the first step towards healing families. Through a host of national partners that are doing amazing work with youth fathers and families across the country, a Day of Amnesty for Dad aims to reconnect fathers with their families. So today we're going to be talking about reconnecting dad. And my guest today is Edward Lawson. He is a certified mediator and case manager with Parent Help, Child Find of America's Responsible Fatherhood Project. Mr. Lawson's chief focus is to re-energize the participation of fathers in the lives of their children. Mr. Lawson also offers strong abilities which could be applied in real estate and financial services, not-for-profit operations management, community relations, and education. Mr. Lawson is also a law guardian representing children in parental termination proceedings, as well as a criminal public defender. Mr. Lawson achieved his Juris Doctorate from the University of Virginia in 1991, Master's in Business Administration from Manhattan College, and his Bachelor of Science in Accounting and Finance at Manhattan College as well. Mr. Lawson also was the 2-year co-captain and the first team all-academic performer. He also has the 1,000-point score and still holds that school's record till today in assists. He is also the board vice president of Fathers Incorporated. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Child Find of America.
Okay, Child Find of America is about 30 years old. It was formed by a woman, Gloria Yankovic. She had actually had her child abducted and wasn't able to find her. And as a result of that experience, she started what has become Child Find of America. And Child Find of America actually predates the National Missing and Exploited Children Center. Mm-hmm. And it's actually the nation's first missing and exploited children center, focusing on locating missing and exploited children. And Child Find has, over the years, developed a real knack at locating children and also assisting parents who have abducted children. Because as you know, when we hear of abducted children, most of the time on the television or the radio, we think of children abducted by strangers. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is that most of those children, numbering about maybe 115 a year, are not the bulk of abductions. Actually, there are over about 200,000 parental abductions each year. Mm-hmm. And that is what Child Find has found in its work, in that most of the abduction that occur in our country is by parents. either because they're living apart, they're in the throes of a divorce, or issues surrounding separation and legal custody. So what has happened over the years as Child Finder of America has developed a concept of dealing with both sides of the fence. When I say both sides of the fence, I mean moms and dads who are living apart from their children and all the issues that are apparent there.
Okay, that's a good transition because about 5 years ago, Child Finder of America was funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to create Parent Help. Tell us a little bit about Parent Help.
Exactly. 5 years ago, we're sort of at the tail end of our grant now, but we're hoping to be refunded. Parent Help was, as I was mentioning, born out of Child Finder of America because we were actually already doing the work that Parent Help is now charged with the responsibility of doing. Chief among them is locating children. A lot of times we have situations where moms or dads, for whatever reason, feel like they need to separate and get away from that other parent, and they relocate to another state, another city, and aren't able to be found. We have been able to assist in locating those parents in those situations and those children. I need to caution and need to be real specific here, though. We do not try to create a situation that's more harmful to a child or to a situation than is necessary. So if there's sometimes people leave because of domestic violence reasons and because of abuse. We will not locate someone for that person. Okay. And we take great pains at sharing addresses with a caller. We may share address with a lawyer or the courts, but we will not just give an address to somebody that calls and asks for a location service.
Okay. We're approaching Father's Day in a few weeks, and it's one of those days, unlike Christmas, and unlike birthdays and anniversaries, and even Mother's Day to a certain extent, where many of us will celebrate and be happy about the day, even look forward to it coming. Father's Day has a different kind of aura around it. Right. And while many people will celebrate it, many great dads, will have loving families around them. Many dads will receive phone calls, from their children and others, celebrating their fatherhood. A growing trend, even though I discourage it, of single mothers even being offered a happy Father's Day, on that day. That's another show. We'll come back to that one. But many more people will agonize over the day. Many people will walk and go through Father's Day, with great pain. With great anxiety, over a missing dad, over a dad who was not involved in their lives, and all of it speaks to the significance of a father in a child's life. Talk to me a little bit about why fathers are so significant in the lives of children.
I think because there are certain things that a father brings to the table that no one else can bring. And when that is missing, there is something missing in that relationship with his child, and actually something missing from the child. So just bringing it back to Parent Help a little bit, we do all of our work via telephone. And what's interesting is that we find around the holidays, usually right before, right after the holidays, we get a rush and a flood of calls. Father's Day is really when we get the bulk of rush of calls. And it's a lot has to do with the fact that men just don't have the ability to talk to anybody else about the agony that they're going through because they can't have this relationship with their child. So a lot of times we spend a lot of time on the phone talking about and talking through that pain. And it is pain. It's a real pain because there's seemingly nothing that can be done about changing the circumstance. So the agony begins, I think, because there's a dad who truly and dearly wants to be in his child's life. But there's a pain in that he doesn't know quite how to do that. So one of the great things about what we can do at Parent Help is share strategies about communication, share strategies about how you might bridge the gap between mom and you so that you can have a better conversation and as a result maybe have more access to your child. But there's nothing to deal with that pain, that absence that a father feels from not having the ability to have a relationship with his child.
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing is, as we kind of talk today about reconnecting dads, you know, a lot of people are going to want to hear more about the courts, you know, particularly fathers who have had issues with courts. You know, other people are going to want to talk about and hear about child support and how child support has served as an obstacle or a barrier between them and their children. And I just want to say today that that's not what this show is about. You know, we're going to come back and do those shows as well, because those are critical places that we need to kind of settle down. You know, but this issue of emotional pain, you know, is one that we don't talk about enough. Because we see it, you know, in the children that we surround, and the men that we serve, and even in the mothers that are impacted by, you know, not having fathers actively and positively involved in the lives of their children. And there always seems to be this undercurrent of pain and agony in these conversations. And I'm sure you hear much of that with your phone calls. Tell us a little bit about some of those kinds of calls that you receive from parents.
Yeah, you know, it's a situation where I think most dads who call us want to be dads. And it's a situation where they may not have the ability or the tools or the skills to be that dad. You know, we always joke that, you know, children don't come with manuals, and there's a lot to fathering and parenting that we don't know. But a lot of these guys really want to do the right thing and just can't seem to get the skill set or the talents to be able to do that, and as a result, it creates a frustration, and that frustration turns into an anger, and that anger may turn into something else, and it blocks the ability to have effective communication. So I think, in short, the issue is not having the ability or the skill set to be able to effectively communicate. I always use this adage. When you board a plane, and one of the first things the stewardesses tell you is that in the case of loss of cabin pressure, please put on your mask. And then when you put on your mask, you're able to assist children and others and elderly. Well, what I see a lot of times in the calls that I have is that there are guys with a lack of oxygen. They don't have their mask on because maybe no one has instructed them, maybe they didn't develop the skill, maybe they didn't have a father. And so there's some deficits there, and as a result of those deficits, they then affect his ability to be able to parent and relate to his child and the mother of his child.
You know, in my book, I kind of, you know, and I use my life as a testimony all the time when doing this work across the country. And I always talk about, you know, the most significant time in my life, particularly, you know, as a milestone with my dad, was unfortunately when he passed away. You know, and not being able, you know, to connect on a human, emotional level, you know, with a man who played a part in me being, you know, here. And so, you know, we agonize, you know, over this term deadbeat dad, you know, and, you know, I saw a Facebook comment the other day, you know, about a situation that's taking place, you know, nationally now, particularly the Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, thing. And this woman just kind of, she was going in, you know, on him being what she described as no good, and all of the other expletives that, you know, come behind being no good. And so, you know, I got into a little bit of a dialogue with her, you know, around, you know, being conscious about how you judge people, you know, and how their children sees how they're being judged. Now, ultimately, that is on him, you know, how his children will ultimately see him and how he treated his mother and all of those things. You know, but his case and other cases bring to the forefront this whole issue of how we separate our relationships, you know, with the mothers of our children, our wives, our girlfriends, our fiancés, and the relationship that these men have with their children. And sometimes it's very hard to disconnect them. Do you see a lot of that in your phone call?
Right, because it is hard to disconnect. The relationship with your child is similar to the relationship with the mother, because it is for life. For life, that mother will be the mother of your child. For life, that child will be your child. So there is no disconnect. There is no separating away. But what there has to be is the ability to communicate and to resolve conflict. One of the things that we try to do and we pride ourselves on is the ability to deal with folks who are in high conflict situations, which is this situation. When you're dealing with parents that are living apart, you're dealing with two separate households, you're dealing with loads of back issues and baggage. So those things have to be dealt with. But once they're dealt with and we focus on what the true issue is which is how do we together parent this child?
Okay.
Because that legal and physical requirement is still there. How do we parent this child? And what has to happen ultimately is we need to be able to come to that base common ground, which is we have to do this, and we're going to be in this thing for life, as we mentioned. Mm-hmm. So how do we do this effectively so that you walk away unscathed, I walk away unscathed, and more importantly, we do what's best for a child?
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that, you know, in my workshops that I do, we kind of talk about terminology, mm-hmm. and how we define and how we describe, you know, certain things. One of the things that always disturbs me, particularly when it comes to custody battles, you know, is the notion that you won and he lost, or he won and she lost. Mm-hmm. And you know, from a terminology point of view, that's a hard thing to walk out of a court in the back of your head, because what that really says is you lost your kids or you won your kids. Right. Where, you know, the real loser in the situation is the children, because they've lost, you know, a possible contact with one or the other parent. And so in saying that, you know, a lot of times the reasoning, you know, for why dads disconnect is always unforgivable, regardless of what it is. You know, just like with moms, you know, when moms disconnect from their children and they connect at some later point in life, the reason for their disconnect is always unjustifiable, no matter how much they feel it was justified them leaving. You know, what are some of the biggest reasons you hear when you talk to fathers about not being connected to their children that they give you?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something you mentioned. One of the issues that is going to be prevalent, is going to remain, is the fact that the court system is an adversarial system. So by nature, it is, I fight against you, you fight against me, and the theory is if we fight hard enough, the ultimate winner will be who should have won. Okay. It's sort of like a battle or test of the fittest. And that's our system. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. What we try to do is we try to take a step back from that and say, okay, during our conflict resolution and mediation sessions, what is the best outcome for the child? Mm-hmm. And let's take away about who won and who lost, because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, it's not about whose flag can be planted on the top of the mountain. It's about whether our child is effectively parented. Mm-hmm. And so that's what becomes the key issue. How do we effectively parent the child? Because, and so to your question, we try to rid everybody of these battle armament ideas, mm-hmm. where they're taking up their arms and he's taking up his arms and we're going to go and duke it out. Because ultimately what you're going to have is you're going to have wounded and battered people. Right. And as a result, a battered child. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do, hopefully, is to have these very difficult conversations, but to have them in a way that's effective, so that at the end of the day, the parties are now agreeing. Mm-hmm. What we often tell people is we'll try to reach out. We'll try this conflict resolution thing. We'll try this mediation thing. But at the end of the day, if this does not work, you're free to go to court, mm-hmm. and have somebody else decide what happens. Mm-hmm. And that you'll be quite surprised is that motivates people a lot to try to work really hard at coming to an agreement themselves. And to be quite frank with you, those agreements tend to be more followed than the court orders, because these are parties coming together and working out a solution that works best for them.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a father and I'm calling, you know, parent help, and, you know, I've had some issues. You know, I'm having a problem getting a job, having issues with child support. They've taken my driver's license. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been incarcerated. You know, I don't have enough training. You know, my education isn't where it's supposed to be. I'm not living in adequate housing. And while what I'm describing to you may sound kind of odd and may sound odd, it is the typical case. You know, typically when these guys I know are coming, you know, right. to parent help, this is their background. But on top of that, the thing that's pulling them to the table is, I want access to my children. You know, I want to be with my children. How do you begin that conversation?
Well, we begin by having the conversation that sometimes you have to let the guy speak. He has to be able to tell his story the way he wants to. Generally, his experience has been nobody has really heard him out. Nobody has really taken the time to say, well, what is your issue? So we know that when they call, they have those issues, those background issues. But when you're in court, you maybe have 10 or 15 minutes before a judge, and most of that time is taken up by the judge and the lawyer speaking. You may, if you're lucky, get a half a second to speak. And as a result of that, that creates this frustration because you never get the judge never gets to hear that side of the story. So we initially give people what we call venting time, a time to vent. And you'd be surprised, a lot of the times at the end of our calls, we hear, this is the first time anybody's ever heard my story or ever listened to me. And sometimes that's just enough, because I just want to be heard most of the times, is what guys say. So after that part, after we hear what they have to say, then we ask, what is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to accomplish by calling? And they go through their issues. And so we start piecing through their issues. One of the other things that we try to do is we try to eliminate this notion of the dump. And what I mean by the dump is you come and you have all of these issues. And so now you want to dump those issues on me and have me fix your world. And that's not good either. We want to, the father has to be responsible and carry some of the weight of this resolution himself. But what we say is, let's break this down into its components, and let's look at what's going on, and then let's attack each thing as it appears. So if we are in need of employment, we will make the appropriate referral. And that's one of the good things about our program as compared to other programs, is that we can work in tandem with people that are on the ground. So if I get a caller who needs a job, and needs to be placed into a workforce development program, I have the appropriate referral to make. I can make that call for him, and I can direct him there. So it's a matter of listening to him so he can have that outlet. Then it's a matter of, okay, let's bifurcate everything to put each thing in its proper lane, and then let's attack it as it comes, as opposed to trying to attack it in one fell swoop.
There's it's a huge war. And there's many battles on the field. A lot of it is generalized. It's men against women, it's mothers against fathers, it's, deadbeat dads against responsible moms, deadbeat moms against responsible dads, children against parents, the fathers against the courts against child support, men against child support. There's all these battles taking place on the field. It often reminds me of that Wide World of Sports commercial with the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It's kind of like you can see, many fathers that, we speak to kind of flying down that ski hill, bouncing off the side of that building uncontrollably, screaming on the way down, not having any control over what's, happening to them. For as much as we kind of talk about the things that systems create to our inability to do what we need to do, where are we our own worst enemies in this?
I think two things I want to say. One is that the system is what it is. So just going back to responding to your last question, one of the things that we also try to do is, you're not going to change this system overnight. So going in and trying to sue the courts and suing the judges and your lawyer, that's not going to be a ready solution for you. At least it's for the time that your child is a child. But what we do is we try to equip people with the tools necessary to navigate systems. That's the key. The key is, it is what it is. The old adage, you can't fight City Hall. The systems are what they are, but we can give you tools to effectively navigate those systems. That's going to be the best result, even with respect to communicating with the mother of your child. If I can give you conflict resolution skills, if I can talk to you about how when she says something, you don't have to agree with what she says, but you can understand that she values a certain thing. One of the tools that we use in we have a parenting tool that we distribute sometimes to parents who may need it. One of the things that we do is we ask people to identify 5 things that are very important to them. And there's a bunch of words, whether it's thriftiness or being spendthrifty or being strong or being intelligent or being able to work with your hands. We ask you to identify things that are important to you. And when they do that, then we explain to people, that's what's important to them. So when people are saying, well, I don't want you to visit with my child because you're not a good father, we have to try to tell them, well, find out what she's trying to say. And if we're on a call, we'll try to break that down. Well, it could be because you've shown up late every single time that you were scheduled for a visit. So the issue is not that you're a bad father or that you don't know how to properly parent. The issue is that you don't come on time.
Right, okay.
And so that's something that we can correct.
Right.
It's amazing when you start breaking down these things and trying to get at what people's real issues are, how simple these issues are to resolve. Just come on time. Right. Oh, well, you didn't say that. Right. Well, but I've been telling you that you're not a good dad. But you never told me that it was because I was not showing up on time, and now my child is there waiting, is daddy coming, and I have to deal with that kind of thing, or you don't show up. So it's those types of things. Now you may say, well, I had a really good reason. I got an overtime shift, and that's why I couldn't show up.
Why?
But there's a ripple effect to all of these things.
Yeah, but you didn't call, but you didn't, but you didn't, but you didn't, but you didn't, but you didn't.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, you're kind of rustling through a whole bunch of stuff that, causes a whole lot of pain and anguish, between the parents.
Right.
And ultimately affecting the child at the end.
And that's that, you said how we're our own worst enemies because we don't see the forest for the trees. We don't understand that those little things that you think you're accepted, that it's okay with you, has an adverse effect on the mother of your child and your child. So you have to recognize how your actions impact them. Not to say that you're a bad guy, not to say that you're doing the wrong thing, but we also have to respect where everybody is coming from. Right. Once I do that, then I can appreciate. I don't have to agree with you again. And we tell people, you don't have to agree with them, but you have to respect where they're coming from and hear them actively, listen to them actively so that you can address the problem.
We only have a few minutes left. And again, this is one of those discussions that we can probably go on and on and on. There's so many pieces of this that has to be broken down, and we are going to, in our show and in the progress of Dad's Eye View, come back and really strip these things apart. We talked a lot in the last, part of this show about what's wrong and what's going on out there. I have a beautiful, daughter that's going to St. John's University this year. I have a beautiful 11-year-old that's just striving at every point. I have a 2-year-old in my house that's just doing awesomely well, a 30-year-old in New York City, and a granddaughter that's just striving. Father's Day is my favorite day of the year. I look forward to it, for all that it brings, to my ability to be an integral part in my children's lives. What's right about Father's Day?
What's right about it is that kids need both their parents, and specifically they need that male. They need that man in their life. You can go through the statistics. You know exactly what happens when that male is not there. So to have a male there, you mentioned your children. I see the way my son's eyes light up when I attend his tennis match or when I come to watch him play basketball. It's just something that when you know that your dad is there, and there's a protection because he starts to look for me now. He knows where I usually sit, so he starts to look in the corner of his eye as to make sure that I'm there, and it gives him a sense of accomplishment.
Quickly, tell folks how to get in touch with Parent Help, give them the telephone numbers and all the good information that they need to get in touch with you. Parent Help is, we can be reached by telephone. It's the services that we provide are totally free. The number is 1-800-716
3468. For any parents who are living apart from their children that need information around visitation, parenting, mediation, conflict resolution, all those types of things, please give us a call. Services are free. 1-800-716-3468.
Thank you so much, Ed, for coming on the show, talking about Reconnecting Dad. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell, and this is Dad's Eye View. And I'm wishing each and every one of you out there who are great dads in the lives of your children a happy Father's Day. Enjoy every moment of it. I was told don't miss a minute because you might miss a moment. Enjoy your Father's Day. God bless you. See you next time.